Well, hello again, Internet. I'm going to make this video short and sweet because I don't want to edit a bunch of stuff and I don't want to write a post on this, but I do want to share some interesting ideas that I came across in a book that I just finished called Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb. And his ideas are controversial. He likes to push against the crowd, which is needed sometimes. So I'm not going to go through the entire book. I'm not going to explain everything, but I will kind of put up a few quotes here from the book that I found quite interesting and made me think differently. And there's basically three things I'm going to go over here. So the first is complex systems. The second is basically employment is a modern form of slavery or a modern form of domestication. And then the third one is around loss aversion. So we'll start with complex systems. So the first two quotes I'll put up here are: the main idea behind complex systems is that the ensemble behaves in ways not predicted by its components. The interactions matter more than the nature of the units. And the other one is: this is called an emergent property of the whole, by which parts and whole differ because what matters are the interactions between such parts, and interactions can obey very simple rules. So the interesting thing about this point around complex systems is it's something I've thought about and seen before, but I haven't really, thought about it in this light. And in this section of the book, he breaks down the importance of understanding not just the fundamental pieces of something, but the intersections and the interactions between the two, or many. And for me, I thought this was quite interesting, and it might be interesting for you as well, is that when researching a topic in industry, or a technology, and thinking about that one specific piece of the puzzle, sometimes it takes too much energy or too much attention and effort to get yourself to think about not just the thing and learn that area, but also about the interactions between that area and other areas around it, or potential areas in the future. So basically this section made me think about how I want to spend a bit more energy and time and attention on figuring out ways to not just learn a concept or learn about an industry or learn about a technology, but learn about the intersection between that and other things and how that interacts with the overall entire system within it. Because the more I think about it, the more I realize that the intersection or the interaction between the two things, it tends to be where the majority of the interesting information lies. That's where the insights come from, and that's where the magic is. So, complex systems. All right, so the second one is all around the modern day employee. And he talks a lot about modern day's employees in the sense of corporations, so working at big corporates. And this is an uncomfortable section for people like myself because I work at a corporation and I am one of the people that he speaks about. But I think it's important for myself and you and others that are in this situation to not look away from the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable or that you disagree with, but to actually look at it face on and really kind of dissect it and see, is there some truth in this? And if there is, I should be aware of it. So without further ado, I will read a few of these quotes to you from the section that really stood out to me. Someone who has been employed for a while is giving you a strong evidence of submission. So this quote's in the context of him talking about employees being somewhat. He compared them as an analogy of domesticated dogs, and entrepreneurs or people that are working outside of the corporation as wolves that can fend for themselves. So that's interesting. And the second one is, evidence of submission is displayed by the employees going through years depriving himself of his personal freedom for 9 hours every day, his ritualistic and punctual arrival at an office, his denying himself his own schedule, and his not having beaten up anyone on the way back home after a bad day. He is an obedient, housebroken dog. That's an interesting one to think about. It's maybe something I don't completely agree with, but it's definitely something that I've thought to myself in the past. And the last one is, for people who are no longer owned by a company, but by something worse, the idea that they need to be employable. The employable person is embedded in an industry with fear of upsetting not just their employer, but other potential employers. So this last point he made around not just being domesticated to a corporation, but being domesticated to an industry or to the concept of being employable is something that I've seen in many, many other people, and I've seen in myself, which is, I think, a bit of truth inside of this section that I'm glad that I looked at, because it's something I've subconsciously thought about and is intimidating for people like myself and like you, if you're in the same situation, is that you've been in this safe bubble for long periods of time, and by being in this bubble, it prevents you from actually knowing what it's like to be outside of the bubble. And also by identifying with something of employability, something like that, people start to think to themselves, do I have the skill sets to please my next employer? Do I have the right reputation? Do I have the right experience? Do I have all these different things going for me so I can be safe in the future? And it's an interesting thing to think about, and something that I personally want to change in myself, so I don't necessarily have to be concerned about pleasing that next employer. Even though it is good and it's pleasing is defined differently, I think it's important for people to think about this and think about this section. With that said, the third section is loss aversion. So the quote from here, there's two. The first is, "What matters isn't what a person has or doesn't have. It is what he or she is afraid of losing." The second one is, "The more you have to lose, the more fragile you are." So I thought about this in a different way, because I've always thought about loss aversion in the sense of finances, of spending money and things like that. And the majority of my life, I've tended to live a quite minimal lifestyle where I don't have much and I don't have much to lose. Like things though, like tangible items. But the more I thought about the section, the more I read it, and the more I kind of contemplated it, the more I thought about, these are things that we traditionally think of as losing. But I thought more about it, and there's some points I want to make here. Three specifically around feeling like you've lost something, like you're afraid to lose something. The first is identity. So being able to identify with a corporation, or identify with an industry, or identify as being a certain type of person. So for me, for instance, I've always been kind of the technology guy that works at a big corporation and knows about fintech payments and banking. So am I okay with being disassociated with that identity? Is that something I'm afraid to lose? Another one would be status. So status in the sense of how you're perceived by others, or how you think you're being perceived by others. And those other people could be family members, those could be friends, or those could be colleagues or industry folks that you're working with. And that's a question I ask myself as well, is, am I afraid of losing this perception? Even if it's not reality, my perceived perception of others perceiving me. Is that something I'm afraid of losing? That's something I thought would be quite interesting to share with you, for you to think about as well. And then the last one is a comfortable lifestyle. And not the comfort of kind of like lavish luxuries and great things, but the comfort of stability and security. Am I afraid of losing the psychological comfort that comes with being able to pay the bills next month, to being able to pay for food for the week, to be able to have a gym membership to go to be able to have internet? These things that we take for granted sometimes, or at least I do, and in the modern world, or at least in kind of the secure psychological world of safety when it comes to being able to pay for the basics that we consider basic. So that was another interesting thing I thought about to kind of contemplate. So these are just three ideas that I came across that I wanted to share with you. I want to know kind of maybe your opinion on some of this stuff, because I know, like I said, some of these aren't necessarily what we all agree with or we think are correct, but they are definitely questions and ideas and concepts and points of views that I think would be interesting to think about. So in the comments below, or wherever you want to put this, let me know what you think about these, and do any of these resonate with you? Do you conflict with any of these? Are there other perspectives that you've come across from other people or books or concepts, blogs, etc., that you should share? And let me know, because I'd like to see both perspectives. But yeah, this is a quick video that I wanted to share with you. So internet, I'll see you sometime.